Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Winners and Winers Radio. I am your host, Scott Steen, lead handicapper at winnersandwiners.com. And I am joined, as I always am, by my partner in crime. He is senior handicapper at Winners and Winers. Help me welcome Mr. Scott Reichel. Scotty, what's up, bud?
Nothing much. How was your weekend?
It was good. Good. Made a little money, had a little fun. It was a good time. And yourself, how'd you do?
Did very well. I had a winning day for the entire weekend, and I mentioned that I had a tennis future because as a tennis guy, I kind of have to have a future every now and then.
Right?
And I won. So I hit a 7-1 shot on Anderson to win the Newport tournament, and he won yesterday in the final. So overall, solid weekend.
Well, Scott, I know everybody was certainly looking forward to more of our tennis bad beats here in the Call the Cops segment, so we have that to get to, right?
We actually had, as far as I can tell, no extreme bad beats, especially in the main tournaments. You had a lot of qualifying, but it's pretty tough to find actual lines for those. So,
Right.
no, you're off the hook for tennis stuff.
Whew, thank goodness. As always, I want to remind everybody you are listening to Winners and Winers Radio. Give us an hour and we'll give you the winners. And of course, Winners and Winers Radio is brought to you by our title sponsor, of course, winnersandwiners.com. Winnersandwiners.com, the number one site in the world for predictive sports analysis. Each day, people from over 150 countries stop by Winners and Winers to check out the latest line movement, weather, injuries, all those things that affect your plays at the last minute. If you're not using winnersandwiners.com, you're leaving money on the table, guys. Winnersandwiners.com, full previews and predictions every game, every single day, always 100% free. So, without further ado, we talked about it just a little bit, but we'll get to it. We'll kick off the week. Scott, we have a whole weekend to choose from. Find out those games, the people that took it in the shorts, the people that thought they had a winner right up until the time they didn't. Scott, when you get something stolen from you, there's only one thing you can do. You know what it is, folks. It's time to call the cops. But the cops were going to be late there for a minute, Scott. Isn't that the way it always is? There's never a cop around when you need one. Just absolutely brutal. But nope, everything's good. Hey, if you had the Yankees Red Sox under 9.5 in that Sunday night game, you're looking good. It was 3 runs through the first 6 innings, scored four runs through the 7th, 3 runs in the 8th. The game ended up 9-1. That was the Sunday night game, right, Scott?
Yes, it was. And it was even worse because the Yankees were the home team, so they weren't going to bat in the bottom of the 9th. So the Yankees did most of the damage, and yeah, they were going to be missing an at-bat there. So that's even worse.
All right, fine. I had that when I kind of double clutched on that because for some reason I thought the Red Sox had put up 2 runs.
No, I'm pretty sure. Was it 2? I thought they scored 1.
Well, now I'm double checking. It was 9-1. You're absolutely correct, sir.
That's what I thought.
I stand corrected. If you had the under there, you took it in the shorts. You took a bad beat. The Yankees, Scott, they just wouldn't stop scoring. The team that has had struggled to score for pretty much the entire season. You just need them to stop. Just stop. Couldn't do it. Half run over. Call the cops.
I think it's even worse because I already mentioned the fact they weren't going to bat in the 9th, but did you see the Yankees lineup? You barely knew the guys at the bottom half. It was really just a ragtag group of guys, and yeah, they ended up producing. But either way, looking at the second call the cops was going to be in baseball. If you had the Cubs and Diamondbacks under 9, you were in even better shape because you had 2 runs through the first 5 innings. Then the offense picked up a little bit. You had 2 runs in the 6th, 2 runs in the 7th, and 2 runs in the 8th. So now, all of a sudden, you have 8 runs with a total of 9. Cubs ended up scoring 1 run, and you're like, all right, we're pushing. Please don't give me the loss. And, of course, the Cubs gave you a loss by scoring another run in the 9th, which were meaningless, quote-unquote, because they lost the game anyway. But just like the Cubs, you also lost if you had the under 9 because the game landed 6-4. That's an over.
Took it from 6-2 to 6-4. Thanks a lot, Cubbies. Thanks very much. Hey, Scott, how about the Dodgers on the money line against the Colorado Rockies? They'd taken the first 2 of that series, looking to take the sweep. And they were up by 1 run going into the 9th inning. That should be no problem, Scott, bringing out Hanley Jansen. He's been nails this year. You know, you and I both love us some Hanley Jansen. Scott, he didn't do well last night as he came in, blew the save. They scored 1 run in the top of the 10th, but the Dodgers, even with a 1-run lead heading to the bottom of the 10th, couldn't get it done. Another blown save. Congratulations, Dodgers, for blowing 2 saves in the 9th and the 10th inning. They allowed 2 runs in the bottom of the 10th. Colorado walks it off 6-5. You had the Dodgers on the money line. You paid a hefty price, and it was all for nothing because you got that serious amount of money just stolen from you. Got your pocket picked. Time to call the cops.
Yep, not really much more to add. Charlie Blackmon walking it off is definitely not the sight you want to see as a Dodgers better.
By the way, if you're new to the show and you think Scott and I really do back Hanley Jensen, that was dripping with sarcasm.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
That's a lie. We acknowledge that he's had a fine season. He's had a much better season this year than either one of us have anticipated. So any chance we're going to get to roast him for blowing a game, we're going to do it.
Of course. Then again, he can be as good as he wants in the regular season, but we both know, and I'm sure everyone listening knows, if you're winning by 1 run in a playoff game going into the 9th, he's probably one of the last closers that you want to be pitching for you.
Not the guy you want to see coming in because you know it's going to be exciting. Scott, the opposite of the call the cops. These are the things that went a little better. They went exactly the way you planned them. One of those games where you feel like, you know what? Don't really need a day job. I could probably just do this full time because I am really, really smart. Scott, these are what we like to call in the business the rocking chair wins.
So the first one involved the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Kansas City Royals in a battle of who's the worst team in the American League, who's the second worst team in the American League, who knows. Either way, if you had the Orioles in the money line, you were doing well. They led 4-0 in the 6th inning, won 5-0. And you might have thought, who's pitching? Is John Means back? Do they have anybody on the mound, maybe?
Matt Harvey Day.
Matt Harvey Day, and he was fantastic. 6 innings, no runs. It's just a testament to how bad Kansas City's offense has been. But if you had the Orioles with Harvey on the mound, good for you, because you have guts, and I respect that.
God bless you and your optimism. I don't know who needs to hear this, Scott, but the Royals, not a good baseball team.
They gave it a hell of a run for about a month.
For a month into the season, they had the best record in baseball.
Yeah, a month and change, and they lost, I forgot what it was, 12 in a row, 14 in a row? I don't even recall.
It wasn't good. They were, by the way, minus 160 favorites yesterday going up against Matt Harvey. So did Harvey get that start? Because Lopez was listed.
Harvey got the start.
That's what I thought. I saw that. It shows you how big of a Royals fan that I am here. They're playing right down the street from me, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I got time for that. So, all right, Scott. Well, yeah, if you had Baltimore, congratulations. You made a nice call, and it was an easy call as the Royals just absolutely no-showed, no runs at all. And how about Tigers on the money line? We actually had that as a premium play today. They led 3-0 in the 3rd inning. They led 5-0 in the 5th inning. They ended up winning 7-0 over the hapless Minnesota Twins. That was a sweep. And if you had the Tigers money line there, that was a fine play. You were getting we got plus 120 on that. I will take that all day, day. This Minnesota Twins team, Scott, they look bad right now.
Well, I'm not sure if that was an intentional pun or not, but they were the hapless Twins with Hap on the mound, so you're usually going to do pretty well in the situation. But anyway, looking at the final game, we'll be looking at the Blue Jays, and we got a 2-for-1. Because if you had the Blue Jays on the run line in Game 1 or Game 2 of the doubleheader, or why not both, you had a nice, easy winner because they won both games against the Rangers by a combined score of 15-0. That's pretty easy.
Tough to win when you don't score. See the Royals from above. Absolutely correct. See the Royals, see the Twins, and see the Rangers. That's a double lot right there. People down in Texas know what a double lot is. That's not right there.
Well, just to actually look at the overall series, I know I mentioned that the doubleheader was 15-0. You could even throw in the Friday game because all 3 games in that series, Toronto won by a combined score of 25-2. That's
not good.
That's a destruction. That's a mercy rule in pretty much every Little League game.
Scott, is there a reason that we did not include the game from Friday night in the rocking chair segment that ended up with 32 runs? Was the total on that like 29.5? Was that not a big enough win?
I think it was just because we found enough from yesterday that we like to do most recent.
All right.
We're a recency bias program.
Well, see, I wanted to tout that because we did have the over in that San Diego Washington game as a premium. So, of course, San Diego scores 3 in the top of the first, Washington 3 in the bottom of the first, San Diego 7 in the top of the second. Bob's your uncle, inning and a half. That's a ball game right there. They went
What
on
that game end up with 32?
24-8. Yes.
Good
Everybody was
stuff.
they all went for 2. They went for 2 after the meaningless touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was there was definitely some wide spreads this weekend, Scott. But we always save the best for the last here to open up the show. This is our new favorite segment, no question about it. We like to pick out the person, the entity, the team, whatever it is, the institution, whatever it happens to be. That Scott, let's be honest, they've pissed us off. They've done something stupid. They deserve to be called out. Scott, once again, it's time for Donkey of the Day.
Brightens up my day every time.
Every day. If you can listen to that and not at least crack a smile, there's something wrong with you.
I'll give you the honors today.
Scott, the Donkey of the Day has got to be right here in my home conference, the Big 12. The NCAA has sort of banned the horns down. If you watch the Oklahoma-Texas game, you see it a lot there. You see it in the various Texas schools, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, when they used to play. Horns down basically means boo, we don't like you, Texas. The NCAA, Scott, they didn't come right out and say that they're banning it. They said, if you do it, it will most likely result in a penalty. First of all, what does that mean?
I have no idea. It means it depends what mood the refs are in.
It depends on the ref. It depends. I mean, are we giving odds? You're an 8-1 favorite to pick up a 15-yard penalty. It was ridiculous the way they do it. Either do it or don't do it. Don't mention it if you're kind of going to do it. But for starters, it's a ridiculous rule. It's not an obscene hand gesture. It's Scott. Are we getting soft? Your generation soft, Scott.
The answer is yes. Now, if you want to talk about gestures that have been kind of removed, if you want to talk about the Florida State Seminole tomahawk chop there, that has other reasons why it was kind of discontinued.
That's offensive to a group of people. I mean,
As for this, is this supposed to be derogatory against cows or something? Because I'm confused what exactly the point of this is. I don't really get it. I know that you want to
insulting to bovine Americans, Scott.
At the end of the day, it kind of goes back to the quote that both of us really follow, which is let the players play. And we like to see people just naturally, partake in a football game, especially with the rivalry nature of Oklahoma and Texas. And I feel like the horns down celebration is a part of that because Texas always claims they're back when they win the Alamo Bowl, and they're going to fall apart in the middle of the season anyway. So I like kicking Texas while they're down because that team is so entitled despite never really winning anything within the last, I don't even know what they've won in the last.
Are they the most obnoxious fans, Scott? Can we talk about Texas?
I think Notre Dame's the most obnoxious.
Notre Dame, Alabama.
I go Notre Dame.
You go Notre Dame. Okay, see, I think there has to be a degree of disconnect from the success of your program. If you're an arrogant Alabama fan, if you're an arrogant Ohio State fan.
Well, Michigan then would top the list if we're going with connection to the program.
Michigan's another one, yes. But Michigan, they're a little more humble. They're a little more humble to me. I don't know. You have more experience up in the Big Ten. I spent some time up there. But
well, I wasn't going to pick Michigan, but you were talking about fans in proximity to how good the team actually is. And with Harbaugh, they've underachieved. So I'm going Notre Dame for most obnoxious because – maybe it just also goes back to what they did in the 90s with the Catholics and convicts stuff, and I thought that was really bad. But, of course, it was a catchy slogan. Sold a lot of T-shirts. But I don't know. Maybe it's also just the religious angle, but I just feel like Notre Dame thinks they're better than you in every single way because they go to a Christian college.
Well, they've got touchdown Jesus, Scott.
It's like we get it. You're a religious school. It's fine. So is BYU. Like you can move on. It's all good.
Okay. Well, I guess the difference is if you're a BYU quarterback, you probably got like 5 kids. If you're one of the Notre Dame quarterbacks, you probably have just a couple.
Also, you're probably 25 if you're an offensive lineman for BYU, or like 20, or maybe pushing 30.
You've been on the mission.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll go Notre Dame, but you can really make a case for Texas because that program as well. I know you had the Vince Young run where you had the title. You had
Yeah.
Colt McCoy, who's won like the most games of any college quarterback at some point. I don't know if he still holds the record or not. I don't think he does. But they haven't won a title since Vince Young, and yet they act like every time they win a game against Kansas State by 20 points.
Easy.
Kansas
Thank
by
you.
30 points. That it's just their time to shine. And it's not. Sorry. Maybe make it to the playoff once before you declare yourself being back.
Yeah, agreed. Maybe win the Big 12. Do something like that. Absolutely agree. This is ridiculous.
This is stupid. I like gamesmanship. If you want to go horns up whenever you're doing well, then you should be able to do horns down when the team's doing poorly.
Yes, absolutely. I think the generation, I can never remember, is it Generation X, Generation Y, and then I think next comes the 10-ply generation. I don't want to sound like the token old guy on the show that, back in my day we weren't soft, but come on.
I don't like my generation either, so I accept it and I just kind of move on with my life.
Let's draw some lines here, guys. Come on, just stop it. You don't have a right not to be offended, okay? That's the way it works. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to everyone that's under the age of 25.
Especially by a hand gesture for a program where you take pride in shoving it in people's faces whenever you're doing well.
Right.
If you're going to give it out, you got to receive it. That's how it works. It's a two-way street.
Yes, absolutely true. So, Scott, all I can tell you is every time I'm watching a Texas game, the opposition scores a touchdown, I will be giving the horns down gesture. No question.
I'm also a big fan, to actually continue on what we were talking about, with the Oklahoma Sooners quarterback who committed to Oklahoma the other day. And the first thing that he did once he committed, he did the horns down move. And I give that guy props.
Yep, absolutely. So another great season of Texas football coming up. Can't wait.
Can't wait for them to start the year, maybe losing to Maryland in the opening game of the season like they have done in the past.
How funny would that be?
It'd be hilarious. But realistically, Texas is going to win a couple games. People are going to say, this team's back. And then they're going to lose a random midseason game to
Kansas State.
I was going to say West Virginia, but one of those. Okay. Something's going to go wrong, and they'll find a way to blame it on somebody.
Yep, absolutely true. So
that's going to segue us, though.
It is, Scott, because Texas is getting a new coach, and they have their work cut out for them. First of all, do you like the hire? They brought
Sarkisian.
They brought Sarkisian in of USC infamy, sort of, I guess. He left on less than great terms from USC.
He's left on worse terms at other organizations or other universities.
He had a substance abuse problem. He addressed it, and more power to him. He was given a second chance to go to work down there for a young fellow by the name of Nicholas Saban. Perhaps you've heard of him down there in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He was a play caller for this Crimson Tide offense that averaged 48.5 points in 2020, 47.5 in 2019. Is that a good hire for Texas, Scott? Is Texas back, buddy? Huh? No?
I'm not a fan of the hire. I think that Sarkisian is kind of a big name, somewhat, but I don't know if it's a big name for good reasons.
12 letters.
People know who he is. It's definitely good if you get the triple letter in Scrabble, but just looking at the actual hire, I was never a big Sarkisian guy. I watched him in Washington. I watched him in the NFL. I watched him even at Alabama. When he left Bama, how'd the offense do without him? They're pretty good last year, weren't they?
Still seem to do okay.
So I'm not going to give Sarkisian, I don't want to say any props, but minimal props for what he did at Alabama, because I think we could call plays for Bama and still score 30-plus points per game. But I think
see that quarterback? You should have him throw to one of those fast guys that are lining up on the outside.
What's the play? We're going to go 4 verts and just throw it to the future top 10 receiver draft pick all the way on the outside. But
which one?
Which one? Correct. But anyway, Sarkisian, I don't think he's a bad coach. But if you're talking about trying to get a program over the hump in the Big 12 and you're competing with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, and the Big 12 besides Oklahoma and Texas, I think we would agree it's a little bit overrated. Is that a fair statement? West Virginia's kind of fallen off a cliff. You're looking around. I don't really see many great programs there anymore.
No, Oklahoma State had a little bit of a run last year. You know, K-State had been much better. They've kind of fallen off the cliff the last 3 years.
Oklahoma State, we can agree, is usually third fiddle, but they're still very good.
But there's usually a pretty good gulf between the
Yes.
Sooners and the Cowboys.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, now sometimes it doesn't always show up in the Bedlam game because it's Bedlam. You don't know what's going to happen. But
Well, if you had to rank Texas right now, if you had to talk about best teams, just even in the last 10 years, just by prestige and how the program's done, Oklahoma's clearly one because they win the conference every year.
yes,
Is Iowa State arguably like 2 or 3?
no, because they were awful up until about 3 or 4 years ago.
That's fair. But if we just talked about 3 or 4 years ago, Iowa State's got to be ahead of Texas, right? They've at least made it to the conference title game. That counts
Yeah,
for something, doesn't it?
I would think. You know, and you could arguably say, you know, and the other thing about Texas versus Iowa State, if you're comparing the programs and talking about similar results, Iowa State's done it with a heck of a lot fewer 4-star recruits.
Yeah.
Than Texas has.
Or even 5 stars, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many 5-stars go to play for Iowa State. I'm guessing not a ton.
Not many.
But Texas has their choice usually of everybody in Texas, which is without question the number one breeding ground for football players in America. California and Florida, sorry, you're close, but you're not Texas, because I don't know if you've ever been to Texas, Scott, if you've ever seen a high school football game in Texas, but they have stadiums in Texas for high school football that seat 20,000 people.
When you have actual title games in high school football for Texas in Jerry World, you know how serious it actually is.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But
so
anyway, to go back to the point, I don't want to spend too long on it, but do I think that he's a huge upgrade over Herman? No, I think that they're both kind of similar-ish coaches where they had success at other programs. Still a bit of a reach, so to speak. I don't exactly expect this team to be really good. Do I think they're going to win 8 or 9 games? Sure. But Texas has the unrealistic expectations of competing for titles every year, and they're nowhere close.
I'm going to miss Tom Herman's record as an underdog in the bowl games.
That is definitely true.
Because that was, speaking of the WWE, that was money in the bank.
Yes, it was. But I don't know if you agree with me. I'll pencil Texas in for 8 or 9 wins most years, but probably nowhere near sniffing a conference title, at least anytime soon. Do you?
No, I don't. They're just they're not going to get past Oklahoma.
I don't think they're going to get past Iowa State if Campbell stays.
We'll see. We'll see how Iowa State does with the.
I think Campbell's great. I think he's a phenomenal coach. Extremely underrated.
And we're going to talk about some coaching changes here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Campbell on that list pretty soon.
Yeah.
So here's my question to you. What is the harder job in college football? Taking the elite program, or maybe even in the case of like a Texas, which is usually the case, a formerly elite program, and trying to return them to national prominence? Or is it harder to take an absolute bottom of the drain type of program like Vanderbilt or KU, and try to win with them, try to make them an average program, a 500 team? What's the harder job? Where is there more pressure?
Well, I think it obviously depends on which conference, because if you're a bottom feeder in, let's just say, the Sun Belt, it's a lot easier to bounce back. But we're talking about Power 5.
Absolutely.
We're talking Power 5, which is why you mentioned Vanderbilt and you mentioned Kansas, and both of them just so happen to switch coaches during the offseason. Now, I'm going with the worst team. I'm going with the bottom, because in recruiting, you can get a decent amount of 3-stars if you're going, to play in the SEC or the Big 12. You are going to get absolutely smacked almost every year, because all the recruits going to the other schools are still better than the recruits you're getting. I know Kansas can switch coaches, and I actually like the coach they ended up hiring out of Buffalo, but do you think that Kansas is going to be able to go into the same meeting rooms for recruits as a school like Texas, Oklahoma, even like in Arkansas in a different conference? Just Kansas State? I don't think Kansas is winning any recruits away from Kansas State. Do you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't know what Kansas really has to pitch. Their facilities are not up to the standards of a lot of the bigger schools in the Big 12. Obviously, they don't have much of a history to go on.
You get free tickets to Jayhawks basketball games.
No, you don't. Oh no, you're not. You're not.
I was joking. That's like
You
the
might get a
only
slight
perk.
discount,
Like
but
that's
no.
the only perk you can potentially argue for Kansas. They don't really have much over there.
Yeah, no. This was just an absolutely dreadful KU team. They won no games. The highlight of their season, Scott, was probably getting their game against Texas canceled.
That
So
was probably the highlight. They won no games, and Les Miles took more losses off the field than on the field somehow over the past year, which is why he doesn't have a job anymore. So
yeah,
Kansas, it's just bad from top to bottom. It's awful. So I would say it's worse to take a bottom feeder in a good conference because there is just so little room for error, and you're just so behind the eight ball. There's really not much else to add. You?
yeah, it's going to be. I don't hate the Lance Leopold hiring, although Scott is.
I like Leopold. It's just what's considered a good year for Kansas. 2 wins. Like, that's how low the bar's set.
A conference. First of all, a conference win.
Beat an FCS team, get 1 win on the record, and then you could have the parade.
They ended up losing to Arkansas State last year.
Yep.
And of course, then they lost to Coastal Carolina in a game that, in retrospect, it's hard to believe they kept it within 15 points the way those teams finished up the season. But see, I have, as somebody that follows KU basketball, because they're 35 miles from my house, follows KU sports rather, I kind of have visions of how the last Buffalo coach they brought in to coach went, and that was not well. They brought in Turner Gill, and he was absolutely overmatched. So it led him to hire, the guy from New England, Charlie, the defensive coordinator from the coach
former Notre Dame guy.
Coached at Notre Dame, right? And
I'm drawing a blank on his name. Sorry.
Yeah, Charlie Notre Dame guy, and of course that ended his career. He was done. I don't know. Lance Leopold, lots of luck, buddy.
I like Leopold. I guess the silver lining is if you take a coach that loves to run the ball, maybe by time possession you'll only lose by 20 instead of 40. I guess that's a step in the right direction they're going for.
See, I like Clark Lee better, the hire at Vanderbilt. I'd rather have a coordinator from a Power 5 school than I would a head coach from a middle 5 or whatever.
Charlie Weiss, by the way.
Charlie Weiss. Thank you very much. Yes, that is absolutely correct.
No problem. But if you want to go briefly through my favorite hires during the offseason,
yeah,
I'm going with Malzahn. I like that hire for UCF. Now, do I think Malzahn's a fantastic coach? Not necessarily. However, he's a well-known coach, whether you like him or not. He was in the SEC for a long time. He did make it and win a national title, and he also made a second one and lost to Florida State. But the point is that he's been there before, and UCF has always claimed, especially since they won the title, quote-unquote, that they deserve more national recognition and they have a higher prestige than they probably actually have. Getting a coach of Malzahn's stature, I think it'll actually do wonders for recruiting, especially in Florida. So I really like that hire. I think we'll agree that talent-wise, UCF should be one of the favorites to win the AAC every year besides Cincinnati.
Sure.
So now you get Malzahn, who might get you maybe an extra 1 or 2 5-star recruits. I really like that hire. I think that makes sense for the spot. You?
Well, let's talk about where that coach from UCF went. Of course, that was Josh Heupel. He was the offensive coordinator with the University of Missouri when Drew Lock was there. He was the head coach in UCF. Now he's moved on to Tennessee. Is that kind of falling upward, Scott? That I don't know that he was outstanding at UCF. You?
I was not a big fan of him at UCF. I thought that he was, well, let's put it this way, fortunate that his team was significantly more talented than the opposition. Also fortunate Scott Frost abandoned ship.
Yeah.
So I think he's fine. One thing I'll notice about UCF, though, is that team was one of the most undisciplined teams I've ever seen. When it came to them trash-talking their own kicker after missing a field goal earlier in the year, I believe it was against Memphis, and they had to restrain the players from fighting each other. The fact that penalty-wise, they were towards the national high in penalty yardage per game. There's just no discipline there.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have some serious problems. And I actually realized, I think I misspoke. I think I said Gus Malzahn won a title. I don't think he actually won a title. So my bad there. He might have won a title.
Wait. Didn't Gus Malzahn win a title with with Cam?
I was looking at that. He became the head coach in 2013, which was when they lost to Florida State. It was the
Okay.
offensive coordinator who might have won.
Who was the coach? Pat, was it Pat? No. Who was the coach with Cam Newton?
I could be wrong, but I'm looking up right now. I just don't see it.
No, that makes sense because Malzahn was at Iowa State before that, right?
I see Arkansas State.
I thought he had a gig in between.
Gene Chizik was the coach when they won the
Gene
title.
Chizik. All right, sorry.
So I misspoke, but the point is that Malzahn made a title game. So my apologies there.
Okay.
He still has experience. He'll help them out. But going back to what we were talking about before, sorry about that. I'm not a big Heupel guy, and I think we'll agree Tennessee is another one of those programs which thinks that it's significantly better than it actually is.
Yes.
And I think it's probably going to blow up in their faces. I like the over in their games. They're going to go fast paced, and they can't play any defense, but I'm sure they'll finish 6 wins, give or take.
Yeah, there's 2 orange teams I have no desire to watch. The first 1 to 6 is a winner there. So yeah. Don't care about Rocky Top. At least Texas doesn't have as obnoxious of a song as Rocky Top.
That's fair.
All right, fair enough. Don't even get me started on Boomer Sooner. So, Scott, USA basketball, baby. They're back. They're back. They beat Spain. They beat Spain yesterday by 7 points, blowing them out of the water, Scott. They finally headed in the right direction. Is everything going to be all right as they headed over to the COVID Olympics over there in Tokyo?
I think that this team is still the favorites as far as last time I checked by a decent margin. So good for them for beating Spain by 7 when you have an all-star team and they have Ricky Rubio and about a 40-year-old Pau Gasol. So congrats to you guys for winning. They were trailing at the half, made some adjustments, worked itself out, but I'm still not impressed with this team. Don't get me wrong, they're the most talented team by far. They just look so disinterested for the majority of games, and I'm sure the exhibition has to do with that because once you play meaningful games, I'm sure they might try more defensively. This team defensively stinks. Can we just admit that?
They haven't done much yet. No, you're absolutely right. I've seen very little to love about this basketball team so far.
And we're talking about how they still might be missing a couple guys before we went on air. Booker might come after the finals, Middleton, Holiday. I think Holiday's a big deal just because defensively, he's easily the best perimeter guard they're going to have if he ends up playing. However, we're still skeptical that after a 6 or 7 game series in the NBA Finals, they're going to immediately sprint to either Las Vegas or straight to Tokyo. I don't buy it.
I don't either. I totally agree, Scott.
I think Booker's got a shot because he's really young and he tries to model himself after Kobe. And, of course, Kobe had the phenomenal Olympic showing in China. I think that he might show up. But you're looking at Holiday and Middleton, who have been around the block a couple more times than Booker has. I think they are not going to play, but I think Booker's going to show up.
So what do you think of the plug-ins, the replacements for Team USA, Scott?
Yeah, JaVale McGee clearly deserved a spot there, right, for the veteran leadership of that squad. I don't know what's happening. JaVale McGee, are you serious?
Yeah, I know. That's the best big man that you could get to play, huh? Nobody else.
I somehow don't believe that.
Although, you think about it, how many great big men are willing to play and not from outside the United States?
I'll take Christian Wood in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would take Christian Wood. Okay, very good.
That was one name that got circled around, and I don't know if he's fully healthy or not, but that guy can play. Now, McGee will add some jokes on the sidelines, I guess, but if he's embracing the Kevin Love bench warmer cheerleader role, then sure, why not?
How many minutes did McGee play in the Denver postseason?
Not many. I kind of forgot he was on the team half the time.
Yeah, I did too. And Keldon Johnson, you okay with that? Or is that Pops making a homer pick there with one of his own Spurs?
That's Pops making a homer pick to give the guy extra reps. He did play really well against Spain, but you can see what's happening. He clearly just wanted to get one of his best players more reps.
So he's just using it kind of as like summer league for him?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Or at least, he gets to learn from the best players in the league or some of the best players in the league. But I think we'll agree that if Johnson did not play for Pop, there's 0% chance he'd be on the roster.
I would certainly agree with that.
I don't think that's a hot take.
Do you think those guys, if all three of those guys for some reason were all to join the Olympic team, who goes, Scott?
What? It's a good question. Truth is, I don't really know if Beal or Jeremy Grant are gonna. Beal, of course, is out.
Right.
Is Jeremy Grant officially thrown off the roster, or how's that gonna work?
I think he's still part of the roster. I don't think he's officially been replaced yet. It was just Beal and Love
I'm
that
going to assume that
McGee and
Grant would be.
Johnson before.
I'm assuming Grant would be thrown off the roster just as a precaution or whatever you want to call it. So I don't. I think Grant would be thrown off. You?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's probably true.
As for the
You know,
others, I don't even know. We'll figure that out as we go.
yeah, I think they need big men. I said that at the beginning, and I stick to it. So
Yeah, I agree.
all right, quick reminder that you are listening to Winners and Winers Radio. Give us an hour. We'll give you the winners. Scott, one thing we've had on the list here to talk about, and I know it's been probably a week now since this came out, but it's kind of opened up a can of worms. Or certainly.
Oh, wait, a question. Are we going through this, or we're talking about the putting greens?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, let's punt it for one more day. All right, I have to keep everybody on the edge of their seat to see what that story is.
It's my fault. I went out of order talking about the coaches first.
Yeah, that's me. No, it was right though. All right, Colin Morikawa won the British Open yesterday, or as everyone else in the world calls it, the Open. Did you see he got roasted for calling it the British Open in his news conference?
I call it the British Open, so
Everyone
I don't really care.
Yeah, he's the leading money winner so far this season. He finished fourth at the U.S. Open this year. He won the PGA last year. Time we started talking about him in that upper echelon, that upper tier of golfers, Scott, up there with DeChambeau and
DeChambeau's a question mark on that list now.
So I mean, who's on that list? Who's the top five?
I think you got to look at people who've won multiple majors. So you're looking at Koepka. You got to mention Dustin Johnson, of course, who's got to be there. John Rahm, I think, has to be on that list as well.
Sure. Spieth,
he's getting back there. Of course, he still had the couple of years there where he wasn't exactly atrocious, but I'd say he had a couple of years similar to what Rory's had for the last year and change,
right?
Which is not pretty, but you expect him to get back at some point. He's got to be on the list. I mean, there's no other way to put it. The way that I look at it, first of all, I don't know if you actually watched much of the British Open because a lot of it took place in the early hours of the morning.
A little early.
But Morikawa, of course, being in one of the final pairings, if not the final pairing, I thought he played basically a flawless round. He didn't really make any bad shots for the entire day. He made all the putts he needed to, went on a huge run. He ended up winning. He went through the last 31 holes with no bogeys in the British Open.
That's impressive.
That's almost impossible. Now, of course, the scores were a lot lower than they normally were because the weather cooperated for once. Probably the first time in British history that it didn't rain for 4 straight days. But Anyway, just looking at the situation, if you wanted to talk about a hypothetical where let's just say that all of the best players, top 10, are playing their best round of golf, and they're just going against each other, I think Morikawa finishes in the top 4. I think Morikawa, just from an all-around game perspective, if the putting cooperates, is arguably the best player on the entire tour. Now, the putting's a serious issue. He was in the triple digits in ranking before this past weekend. Morikawa, from a tee perspective and approach shot, he's easily got the best irons on the tour. He's ridiculous. If his putting ends up being top 40, let alone top 80, this guy is going to be one of the favorites to win almost every major moving forward because his game translates so well to practically every single course.
Is it amazing that he's had the success he has and is that bad of a putter?
I think
he's not even an average putter at this point.
He's bad. That's what I'm saying. That's the one thing that's hypothetically holding him back. But you got to mention the same thing about the Masters. You had Matsuyama won, and historically he was an abysmal putter, and yet he had a very good weekend, ended up winning. I think we would agree that Morikawa, as he's very young, everything else in his game is practically perfect with the exception of putting. If the putting fixes itself, he might be the number 1 player in the world.
He's your age, by the way.
Yeah. I really need to do more with my life.
I was going to say, does that ever make you feel like I should be doing more?
Usually when you see a top draft pick in the NBA get like a $20-something million endorsement deal like Zion, it's like, oh, by the way, he's not even 20 yet. I'm like, all right, fantastic. That's great.
You're like going through your wallet to make sure you can supersize.
I'm looking for coupons. I'm looking for like a 10th sandwich, get an 11th one free type of deal. But anyway, I think we would agree that Morikawa, just if you ignore the putting, might have the best all-around game on tour, at least top 3. Putting is anywhere near average, if not better. He's going to be a serious threat for the next 2 decades.
Certainly possible. Certainly.
Do you think I'm too high on Morikawa, or do you agree?
No.
I think the upside is extraordinary.
Yeah, as long as the other aspects of his game don't start to falter, as long as he doesn't develop some sort of hitch in his approach, I mean, in his backswing or something stupid like that. Yeah, because putting would seem, as kind of an incredibly amateur golfer that I am, it would seem like putting would be the easiest thing to fix because it would seem to have the fewest moving parts.
I think he might need to take a DeChambeau approach, which is take out a massive chartish type of thing where you're calculating what the break is and stuff like that. To really do anything, you can be the biggest nerd with it. As long as it goes in the hole, who cares?
Right.
So if you talk about instant adjustments, some of it has to do with what grass you're playing on. Is it Bermuda? Is it? I don't know about all the details.
Well, I know he had to make an adjustment this week because they're playing on fescue over there, and fescue is slower than what they play on here in the States. He was using the claw grip earlier for his longer putts. That wasn't working. He went to the traditional grip for both short and long putts, and that actually helped out. So
either way, point is for putting, hopefully gets it together. If not, he'll still win a couple more. If he fixes the putting, it's going to be a dominant run.
Okay, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely accurate. Yep. I think the future is just about limitless for young Morikawa. So.
Yep, I agree.
Very good. All right, Scott. Well, we talked about it. We've been saying it for a while that the day would come where it was just going to be baseball.
How much time we got?
Scott, we have a new record. We have about 15 minutes to talk baseball. Although I do want to mention that we did have the basketball game on Saturday night. So did that go the way you thought it would? It was the first time that the visiting team had been able to break through. Any surprises there?
The only surprise is that I still haven't gotten a free Taco Bell taco yet.
Still don't have a taco.
They were tied. They were tied at the half, man. Couldn't get the come from behind win. No, but am I surprised? Not before the game, because I had the Bucks covering the 4. And I also had Chris Paul under 21.5 points, and I won by a hook. So that worked itself out. But once Phoenix opened up a 16-point lead in the first quarter, I don't want to say it was curtains, but it looked really bad. And then Giannis goes to the bench to start the second quarter, and Milwaukee can't miss a shot.
Right.
That's what surprised me.
Yeah,
Once the Milwaukee came all the way back and it was tied at halftime, I thought Milwaukee was going to win. But letting Milwaukee go on that massive run with Giannis on the bench, that's what shocked me. You?
Yeah, I was the same. I was the same way. They came out, and by the way, the Bucks had a 3-point lead at halftime, Scott.
That's right, they did.
Yeah, they outscored them by 19 in the second quarter.
I thought it was tied. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, they put up 43 points in the second quarter.
Yeah,
that's not missing many shots because that puts you on track for 172 for the game. So, yeah, that's not missing many shots at all. And like you said, the surprising part was they were able to do it with Giannis on the bench, and then they brought Giannis back in. They were able to just bring him back seamlessly into what they were doing. So, you know, it was a battle of 2 quarters because the Bucks win the third quarter by 7, Suns win the fourth quarter by 6. So it really came down to the fact that Milwaukee was able to win the second quarter by 19 points. Just an absolute beat down there. Now they go back home, try to close it out in 6. Phoenix have a shot here? I mean, obviously they have a shot, but who do you like?
I got to go Milwaukee. The way that I see it is that Phoenix, I don't want to say they peaked, but it doesn't look too good. We knew going into the series that Milwaukee had the more talented roster. It was just a question if they would actually just stop being dumb for multiple games. And it appears they finally realized, this Giannis guy, they can't really guard him at any single spot on the court. This Middleton guy, pretty good. And this Holiday guy, maybe if the ball goes in the hoop, we'll win more games because Holiday was fantastic. I got to give Holiday a bunch of props. Because
he was the difference. He was the difference in that one.
People know about the steal and the lob and that whole sequence, which was fantastic. But even the first couple of quarters, he was just money. And they needed every basket.
Scott, could we have called a jump on that?
I say no. I usually hold about a 1 or 2 second joint possession thing before you blow it. That seemed like that was just a clear strip. You?
I don't know that I would call it clear, but I think if I'm a Phoenix fan, I've got a gripe. But I think at the end of the day, I probably lean towards the call that was not made. I think it was.
I thought it was a good play. You just reward the defender for that. He came from the weak side. Booker spun into him. He made a play. I was fine with it.
Okay. All right. Good enough. All right. So let's talk a little baseball, Scott. We've got not quite a full baseball card, but we've got a pretty good sized card. Of course, you guys want to stay tuned for our play of the day. Little thing we like to call bet the farm. If you had to bet everything on one play, we've synthesized it down. We've got one fantastic play. And Scott's going to be, I'm not going to give too much away, but it's going to be a little parlay. Going to be a little parlay, Scott. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. We've got a little people's parlay, we like to call it. We got that worked up. We try to put those together. We'll try to do it about once a week or so at least. Give you guys an opportunity to get in on the parlay fun. I know you and I, not massive fans of the parlay. Everything's got to be about right. And I think we got that. I think we got a case like that today. So let's take a look and see what we've got cooked up, Scott. A couple of undecideds. I know you and I both had our eye on the Miami-Washington game earlier on Sunday as John Lester was the announced starter against Trevor Rogers for the Fish. And then those starters have been put on the shelf for now. So we don't have starters for that. And when I like the Miami Marlins a lot in that spot. So keep an eye on that game. But as far as what we do have, Scott, the Mets, and you got an interesting take on the Mets. The Mets travel to Cincinnati, take on the Reds. Reds are a favorite right there, about minus 125 or so, depending on where you go. Scott, what was your prediction about the Mets?
I think
kind of a hot take.
I think the Mets are going to win as underdogs.
What did you say about you said the Mets were getting ready to do something? What did you say they're getting ready to do?
I said the Reds were about to implode. I don't know what I said about the Mets.
I thought you said the Mets were about to go on a losing streak.
No, I said the Reds were about to go on a pretty long losing streak.
Oh, okay.
That was my relative hot take. That's why you threw me off guard there. But pitching matchup's not great. That's why the total's at 10.5. So I think both starters will struggle. Now the Mets had a really, really awful weekend against the Pirates until they managed to rally the troops yesterday after giving up 6 runs in the first inning and then scoring 7 straight. Now, I don't know what your stance is when it comes to the game after a huge rally or a comeback, and if any momentum carries over. It can hurt because the first couple games against the Pirates, especially with that walk-off grand slam by Diaz, who allowed it when he's pointing up like it's a pop-up and it goes over the fence into about the 10th row. I'm assuming we agree that that win probably could not have come at a better time for the Mets.
No. It was.
Meanwhile, the Reds just lost 3 straight to the Brewers. They're now 7 back in the division. I think there's a chance it could get ugly here. You?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure about this game. Mets starting Eichhoff, getting his 3rd start of the season.
Both pitchers are really bad. You look at Eichhoff's numbers, he's got a 7+ ERA on the road. Gutierrez has been good. However, his ERA at home is 5+, so he's significantly worse at Great American. I think it'll be a close game. I think the pitching is going to be hideous. But I do think that the Reds on a 3-game losing streak laying about 120-something, 130-something, it's too high for me. It's either Mets or pass for value.
I agree. I think from a value standpoint, and I don't want to throw people off there. Eichhoff has made 3 appearances this season for the Mets and 2 starts. In his 2 starts, ERA 4.5. So not awful. I'd call that pretty close to league average these days. So catching positive value on the better team, even though the Cincinnati Reds have been a good team at home, but catching positive value, I've got like the Mets because I hate this Reds bullpen so much, Scott. They are so bad.
So that's
and they are so much worse at home.
That's the misleading part, by the way. You said the Reds are actually good at home. They started the season off really well at home. But if you actually look at their overall record, the Reds are currently 3 over. They're even at home.
Yeah, you're right. They've hit the wall the last month or so.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So here was one that I was kind of interested in. It's the Cubs in St. Louis. That's a horrible rivalry. Well, it's a great rivalry, but there's 2 teams in 2 cities that really, really, really don't like each other. There's always fireworks when those teams get together. Alec Mills goes for the Cubs against Woodford. for the Cardinals. And this is kind of interesting, Scott, because it opened as the Cardinals as a minus 110 favorite, and that quickly switched, and it's now the Cubs as the favorite in that game, getting the Cubs somewhere in the neighborhood of minus 110, and 9 is the total. Thoughts?
I like the under. I know that Woodford and Mills numbers-wise are kind of similar, and they're not exactly the greatest, but I feel like you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's a series that both teams kind of need to have if they want to stay in the hunt, or if the Cubs even still care about being in the hunt. But with a rivalry game between two teams that hate each other, I expect a playoff-type atmosphere in this one. I think we'll agree that the next couple of weeks are very important for teams, even if they're not in the hunt, because winning streak, suddenly maybe you don't sell everything at the deadline. So I think that both teams are going to try to go make a run for the next week or two before the trade deadline. I think it's going to be a war. I think you're going to see a lot of bad blood. I'll lean under. You?
Yeah, these are two teams that come into this series with exactly the same record. Both of them sit 46-47 on the year, 9 back of the Brewers. And you are correct, sir. This is a very crucial week, maybe even 10 days, as these teams try to figure out what to do at the deadline. I know the Cubs really don't want to unload everything and blow it up, but I think the loser of this week. Well, I don't think St. Louis is going to blow it up, but
they're going to they got to trade something.
If the Cubs go 2-5 this week, I think they're done.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the under just because I think both teams realize, especially since they have the same record, the urgency level is probably at an easy 10.
Yeah,
I just think you're going to see a lot of bullpen maybe over-managing there. I'll go with the under.
Okay. All
it's
right.
a pure theory on my part, but I think you'll agree that there's some logic to it.
Yeah, and Woodford is going to make his first start, but he hasn't been terrible, so I don't hate that. And Alec Mills has been surprisingly good for most of the season, so yeah, we'll go with that there. And
you like Gausman plus money? You got to be tempted by it, right?
You know, I am. Both of these pitchers have been really good. You know, Tony Gonsolin is really flown under the radar as far as being a great starter there in LA. And of course, we are talking about the Giants and the Dodgers game.
Your dream came true, by the way, because you said, I'm not exactly thrilled with DeGrom at the Cy Young, because what if he gets injured? And now he's on the IL. You think Gausman maybe might be worth a little sprinkle?
It wasn't my dream.
No, sorry, dream's a stretch, but the point is you made an argument, and your argument ended up becoming extremely accurate very quickly. Do you think there's maybe some value on sprinkling something on Gausman right now?
Yes, absolutely. I like anybody who is overachieving for a first place team.
That's fair.
Now the problem is if DeSclafani continues to pitch really well, do they cannibalize the Giants' votes there?
I think that they won't, just because Gausman's going up against other number ones. So I think that matters. And if the fact is that Gausman is the number one option in that rotation, I think if anything, that'll just take away votes from DeSclafani. I don't think it's going to work the other way around.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah, I think that there is definitely some value to be had there. I'm going to see. Give me the breakdown, and I'm gonna check real quick here and see if we've got.
I see the Giants at around plus 114. Dodgers are minus 124. Over under is about 8. I really like the first 5 under. I just see a pitcher's duel. Gonsolin's been as very good as you said before. I see runs at a premium, maybe 2-1 into the 6th. I'll go with the first 5 under.
Okay, I think that's very solid. I think we're going to get the first 5 under there at 4. I wouldn't be looking for 4.5, but the total on the game is 8, so I would expect first 5 under at 4.
Juiced, but I still like it.
Yeah, it's going to be juiced for sure. How about Baltimore? I can't even say Baltimore, the team that just beat the Royals 2 out of 3, going up against Tampa Bay. Big favorites are Tampa Bay in this one, Scott, minus 220 or so behind Ryan Yarbrough. Watkins gets the start for the Birds. Any dog value here?
Well, Watkins has not been bad, so I think if you want the value, take the first 5. But no, I like the Rays on the run line. At the end of the day, Tampa's owned Baltimore for, the past decade, but especially this year, 6-0, and they've won 5 of those games by at least 2 runs. Tampa had a very nice come-from-behind win against Atlanta yesterday. I think going back to the Trop, 28-17 at the Trop, Baltimore, meanwhile, 17-32 on the road. I think Tampa's about to go on a run. We both said that Tampa's probably our pick to win the division. Boston had a pretty poor showing over the weekend against the Yankees. I think Tampa might win a couple in a row here. I'm going with Tampa. I think they're going to roll tomorrow. Or roll, Monday.
Okay. All right. You know what? I'll take a little sniff on the birds here.
I'd go first 5 because that bullpen could get really bad very quickly.
Yeah, that's certainly tempting, but you're not going to get as good a price.
Yep.
But you're going to get Boston somewhere. You're going to get Baltimore somewhere in the neighborhood of plus 190 or so.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
I just have a hard time backing a team that's 0-6 against this particular opponent, and that team is very good at home.
I understand. I get you. I feel you, brother. All right, Scott. Well, it is time to do what we do. It's the end of the show. It is time for you and I to put our heads together, come up with the one play that we like more than all the others, Scott. In fact, we were able to narrow it down to 2 plays today. It is time once again to strap on your straw hat, climb up on that tractor, put a big plug of tobacco in your jaw because, Scott, it's Bet the Farm. All right, it's no donkey. It's no donkey, but it's not terrible. All right, Scott. As advertised before, we are going to take a 2-team money line parlay. We're going to take 2 big favorites on the board in the White Sox and the Astros. We're going to put them together, Scott, and we're magically going to turn 2 minus 200 favorites into a plus 118 parlay. Lance Lynn goes for the White Sox. He has been very good this season, 9-3 record, 1.99 ERA, 104 whip. Meanwhile, he's going up against Griffin Jacks. Who? Griffin Jacks for the Minnesota Twins. By the way, Griffin Jacks, great story, Scott. Fine American, first graduate of the University of the United States Air Force Academy to ever make a major league roster. Obviously, first one to pitch in a game, first one to ever start. Great story. He's a great second lieutenant. What he isn't is a great pitcher. So he 8.66 ERA, 1.70 whip. We like Lynn right there. Chicago's 10-2 against Minnesota this season. By the way, this is a 5:10 Eastern game. So a lot of you, as soon as we are done, you have to get down on this parlay because you'll have about 10 minutes to spare. So do not dawdle, people. Do not dawdle at all. Now, the other half of this parlay is going to be the Astros over the Cleveland Indians. Zach Greinke goes for the Stros. He's been very solid this season. I'd call him a good solid number 2 starter, 8-3 record, 3.59 ERA, 1.12 whip. Going up against Mejia for Cleveland, you and I have faded him all season long with great results, 7.42 ERA, 1.35 whip. Houston has played 4 games against the Indians this season, and they have won them all. Give us Houston on the money line and the Chicago White Sox on the money line. Put them together and have yourself a nice little money line parlay there at plus 118.
Is it a coincidence that his name is Jax, he went to the Air Force, and none of the balls he pitches actually land?
It's another one of those great baseball names like Bob Walk.
I like
Grant,
Scrub.
Grant Ballforce. Scrub. Yep.
No offense to Jax, good story for him, but I'm just saying when that ERA is that bad, you might want to go back to flying.
You're giving up some Jacks. Mm-hmm. No question about it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for Bet the Farm, and that's going to do it for our show. Thanks very much, as always, for listening to Winners and Winers Radio. We appreciate you stopping by. For myself, for Scott Reichel, for the whole gang at Winners and Winers, thanks very much for being here. Let's have a great week, everybody. Good luck on all of your plays, and we'll see you tomorrow on Winners and Winers Radio. Take care, everybody.